Hello everyone and welcome to Creativity Unleashed. Today's video is where we're building the tabletop and the wood for this amazing desk project. I purchased the legs on Amazon for about $105, and I think it's a really cool way to make a much nicer desk is to build your own tabletop. This is out of a tropical hardwood that we cut down at our own chocolate farm and machined up and let it dry for a few years, and I'll show you the whole process of taking the raw lumber and turning it into this gorgeous desk. I really love having the standing desk. I've had a standing desk in the United States for several years and I love working with it. When you get tired of sitting, it's really nice to be able to stand for a while, and the technology has come a long ways, as well as the pricing has come down a lot. There are a lot of options out there. It's fun to be able to make something more unique like you are and really customize it to what you want. So as you can see, only a few more things to install: the control panel, power connection, and then actually screwing the tabletop on it. The assembly of these things are very simple. Really like how they're put together, really nice. So we're pretty much made up of the bottom feet that stabilize it, these pieces of rectangular tubing, and those telescope inside. And so when the bar twists, it raises or lowers it. And you of course have the motor that's raising and lowering this side here. And then this coupling shaft has some lockdowns so you can adjust it. And in here, this is also telescoping. You can loosen the screws on the bottom side and make the desk wider, or right now it's at its narrowest. The tree was cut down and milled with a chainsaw. After drying for several years, I ran them through the joiner to get one of the sides flat, and now I'm running it through the thickness planer, getting them all to the same thickness. We're cutting off the ends here. You can see some of the chainsaw marks, and of course a lot of the ends are split pretty far into the wood, and that's often due to not painting the ends, as well as how they're dried and stacked. But after getting them all cut to length at the rough dimension, I'm running them through the jointer to get one of the edges true and square to the other faces. And once that's done, we're running it through the table saw. I'm using the Metabo HTP table saw, which even takes the dado stack, so when you're doing box joints, it's really nice. It's a really great portable table saw that works quite well in the shop as well, so I've been quite happy with that. We're going to be using a biscuit joiner to do the joining work. I really like the biscuit joiners. I have a Harbor Freight one, and it's worked out quite well. There's a lot more expensive ones, but for as much as I use a biscuit joiner, I think it does a great job. To me, it's always important to spend a few extra minutes laying out the boards. There's definitely usually a way that they look better together, as well as even if you set all your machinery to 90 degrees, sometimes there's a few thousandths off, and so by playing around with it a bit, you'll find where the boards fit together better, which will make a better join up. Some people intentionally put a very small bevel on the boards and line them up correctly, and that can get rid of any separations between the boards and make for like a nicer looking joinery. I don't really mind if it doesn't come out exactly perfect, because I'm using an angle grinder with a sanding disc on it. One of the key things about using an angle grinder is to have a lower RPM grinder. You can see in the picture here, I used a V-Vor that's actually meant for doing metal sanding of pipe, and that's a really cool tool to have for doing round pipe, but it's also really neat because it's much lower RPM. So got everything clamped up, straight edge, and I'm just using the circular saw to cut off the end. Also, I find some people like using a router for finishing the edges and doing a round over a chamfer, but I really like the look of just running a simple hand plane on the edges. I think it makes for a much more natural looking finish, and it looks way more handmade, and I kind of like that look. Giving it a nice sand. Of course, we used random orbit. Now I'm getting started on the little raising shelf. There's like a little shelf to raise the monitor up, because I'll be using a laptop as well as a monitor for all of my video editing, so I like to keep it just a little bit higher. When I was first getting into woodworking, I used to use pocket screws for like all the joinery, and they can be great. I still use them a lot, but they definitely have some issues in the sense that you have holes to deal with, and when you go to put in the screw, it tends to pull things out of place. And even with clamps, they can be a little bit hard to get things clamped exactly where you want them. Whereas with biscuit joiners, you really get a much higher accuracy of where the placement of things are. And of course, the biscuits are mainly there to help align things, but they do add some strengths to the joinery. So one of the things that I find really improves woodworking and speeds up the time it takes is to having methods to sand the wood very rapidly, and the angle grinder or polisher does a great job. I'm also using a sanding sealer, which that speeds up the finishing process quite a bit because it dries in about 15-20 minutes and sands really easily, and it seals all the pores of the wood. You can see I'm sanding off the outer surface, getting it super smooth, and then we're spraying on the finish of choice. And with that, you'll only need 1 to 2 coats, and it will leave a much smoother, better finish because of the sanding sealer. So that's one of the tricks that I always use, and it in the long run saves a lot of time. I'm using an automotive spray gun from Harbor Freight, and they work extremely well for getting a really nice finish. Just attaching the desktop. So now I'm going to just attach the control panel about 2 inches in from the outside, which seems like the pretty normal way of doing that, with 2 screws. I also attached a few extra hooks underneath the table to manage some of the wires and keep everything neat and organized. So I hope you enjoyed the build process. It was a whole lot of fun to make it. I think it came out incredible. I love everything about it. I may add a drawer later, but I always just like when the drawers kind of hit your legs or whatnot, so it'd have to be very shallow. I also think it was pretty cool that I added a power strip underneath and made it very easy to do the cable management, which can definitely make your desk look pretty messy. Remember to like and subscribe if you like this kind of content, and I will see you guys in the next one.